everybody for joining us in this Google Hangout. This is Congressman Steve Scalise. This is the first time I've done a Google Hangout, but we've done a number of things through social media to interact with our constituents in Louisiana's 1st Congressional District. So I thank you for participating with us in this way. You can always go to our website at scalise.house.gov, follow us on Twitter or Facebook, and we have all the ways that you can do that on our website. And there are going to be some things I'll talk about in terms of the stories that we've been getting relating to President Obama's health care law, and of course that's the focus of what we'll be talking about over the next 10 or 15 minutes. I'm glad to have two constituents from Southeast Louisiana that have shared their stories with me that I wanted you to hear from, and really that's going to be the focus of today's Hangout. And if you look at the history over the last 4 years, when the bill originally went through, it went through the House Energy and Commerce Committee that I serve on. We had a lot of hearings on it. You could tell that there were going to be a lot of serious problems that this law would create with the healthcare system we had. And look, we had a healthcare system that had some problems. Primarily, the cost was too high, and there was some limited access for some people. But unfortunately, the law, as it's now being implemented, is creating even worse problems. Costs are actually higher, dramatically higher. People are losing the good healthcare plans that they had. All of the broken promises that were made. If you like what you have, you can keep it. Probably the most repeated promise by President Obama during his 4 years as president, and yet that promise has been broken to millions of people. We've got some people here in Southeast Louisiana that shared their story with me, and I encourage, if you have not yet shared your story, if you've been impacted by the President's health care law, please go to our website at scalise.house.gov and share that experience with us, because I've actually been able to use some of those real experiences in our committee hearings. We had Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, who's in charge of the President's health care law, before our committee, and we'll have her back again. And in fact, I was able to share with her some of the real-world experiences. As they're saying everything's working fine, we're not seeing that on the ground in the real world, especially my constituents in Southeast Louisiana. The stories I've heard have helped me to expose that and to really hold this administration accountable for those failings and the things it's doing to hurt the good health care that people enjoyed before the law took effect. So with that, I want to go to two of our constituents here in Southeast Louisiana who did share their stories, and we'll start off with Aaron, who lives in Slidell, had an experience that he shared with me. And if I could just bring Aaron in right now and start with you, and then we'll go to Allison. So first, Aaron, if you could just share the experience you had with the President's health care law, how it impacted you and your family, and share that with all the people that are here in this Google Hangout.
Sure. Thank you very much, Congressman, for the opportunity to talk about this and for pursuing this. You know, I'm a single owner LLC. I have a small business. It's just me. I have an individual policy that I went out and purchased on my own for myself and my family. And I got a letter in October saying that my policy no longer would be in effect, that it was going to be canceled because it didn't meet all the requirements of the new Affordable Health Care Act. So they said, you know, I'd get a letter in a couple of months about explaining exactly what services I need and you know, how much more it was going to cost me. And so I've gotten that letter, and essentially that's what's happened is I have lost the health care plan that I went out and shopped for and chose on my own, and I'm essentially being offered a plan by the same insurance company, but at a much higher rate, about 80% more than what I was paying for services that I really don't need and didn't include in my original policy because I didn't need them. So it's kind of and that's kind of where it stands. You know, I think there are a lot of people in my situation who are, you know, small business people that you know, that have their own individual policies, and we chose to do that. I mean, it's our choice to go out and buy a service from a company if we want to do that. I don't particularly like the government tell me that I need to go and buy that service, and then tell me what service I need to buy is even worse. So anyway, that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
That's really powerful to hear. Unfortunately, I've heard a lot of stories like that, but for Aaron, for you to tell me specifically, and especially when you talk about an 80% increase in your healthcare premiums, you know, we hear these things, and you hear some of these reports that are coming out, and they they say across the country people are having double-digit increases, but to hear a specific story where you're sharing with us about an 80% increase, and it's not for a better policy, it's actually for a policy that's not as good as what you wanted for your family. You're forced to buy things that you don't even need. This is the kind of thing that we're seeing. So let's now go to Allison from Madisonville. Allison, thanks again for sharing your story with me. If you can share it with everybody else here that's on the Google Hangout.
Sure. Thank you for letting me be here. I tell you, what had happened is they called me and set up an appointment and told me that my insurance agent was I have a new insurance agent, and they wanted to schedule an appointment for me to meet him. So I said, okay, well, that's fine, so we could go over my policy, because, we haven't really reviewed it in a long time. Because I've had my policy with Blue Cross Blue Shield for about, gosh, I guess 6 years now. And I said, well, if it has anything to do with Obamacare, I said, no, thank you. I'm happy with my policy. So the gentleman, we made the appointment. He came over. He came in, and he sat down and talked with me. And I explained to him again. I said, oh well, I don't want to have anything to do with Obamacare. I said I like my policy, and we get to keep it. And he begins again, and he's starting to open up his book and tell me, well, I'm going to go over with you some of the Obamacare plans. And I said, I don't think you understand what I just said. I said, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And he kind of got kind of stern and said, well, the American people just need to accept the fact that there's nothing they can do. And I said, well, guess what? You sitting here looking at a country girl that can do something. Said,
they don't want to cross you.
Yeah, I said, let me tell you. I said, you've already wasted enough of my time this morning. So, and I said, well, I thought you were here to talk about my policy. I said, because maybe it needs to be updated. And he never gave me a business card or anything at first, but he had his little Blue Cross Blue Shield shirt on. And so, I mean, I just kind of accepted it at that. And so he said a few more things or whatever. I can't even remember. But so he said, okay, well, I guess we're finished here. So he goes to leave, and I said, well, wait a minute. I thought we were going to discuss my policy. Well, he knew nothing of my policy at all. So I was so confused. So he says, well, here's my card. And he goes, oh, wait, I can't give you that card because it's got Obama's name on it. And then he gave me another card. And I don't know if he was just being, like silly about it or really had an Obama card on it. So after he left, I had the card, and it didn't even say Blue Cross Blue Shield. I was so upset. All I could think was, you know how the census people come out and they help you fill everything out. I was under the impression at this point that the president had these people coming out, getting everybody to sign up for his program. And
there are navigators. We've been actually having some investigations into this, where the federal government, through the president's health care law, are paying people to go. Now, they said, first of all, that they wouldn't be going to people's houses, that they would, I guess, be doing community meetings, but ultimately they're paid by the federal government to go and promote the president's health care law. I'd love to, we'll work with you offline to get the name of this person that came to your house to see if there's somebody that's paid by some private company, or are they in fact paid by the federal government to promote the president's health care law, because like I said, they've testified under oath in committee that these navigators would not be going door to door, would not be going to people's houses. So we'll definitely work with you offline to get that information.
Well, exactly. So after he left, I was so under that impression. I was so upset. I got online. I emailed you. I emailed the governor. I emailed the senators. Everybody.
You took action. That's good, and it got to us. Obviously, we we want to now help work with you as we're holding these agencies accountable in our committee hearings. This is the kind of thing that we can use to in fact push to make sure that we can actually find out what's going on. If I can ask you, Allison, who's that you got with you there? Is that your daughter?
Yeah, she's my co-pilot here. She's
What's her name? How you doing?
This is Savannah. What's your name?
Savannah.
Savannah, that's beautiful. Well, thanks for participating in this with your mom, because at the end of the day, we hear this all the time, but here's a real example. I mean, when people are buying healthcare, they're not just buying it for themselves; they're buying it for their family. And Savannah goes and sees doctors. I've got a son and daughter. My wife shops around for the best policy. This has impacted us personally too. By the way, we've had to change policies, and we don't want to have to lose the good doctors that we have that we like. As Aaron said, he's paying 80% more for things that he doesn't even want. Allison, what you said is you want to keep the plan that you have. And again, this was probably the most often repeated promise that Barack Obama's made in the 5 years he's been president. If you like what you have, you can keep it. Everybody's heard that. And yet that promise is now broken to millions of people. I've heard from so many people that have lost the good policies that they have, and now you got somebody coming to your house telling you, "Oh, just deal with it. That's just the way it is." Well, that's not the way it should have to be. Again, you were made a promise by the President of the United States, and if the President's broken that promise in his health care law, then he needs to work with us in Congress to change that. And I just do want to mention one thing, because there are a lot of people say, "Oh, well, there were problems in health care before the President's health care law," and I agree with that. The problems are made worse now. That's the problem. You should at first do no harm. That's the old Hippocratic Oath. There's a bill that I've worked on with a number of my colleagues in Congress called the American Health Care Reform Act. It's a bill that you can go online and look at. We have it on our website, scalise.house.gov, and it's a bill that is less than 200 pages, by the way, which contrasts with the President's law that's over 2,500 pages with all these unworkable mandates. The first thing we do is we repeal the President's health care law. I don't think you can fix this law. It's so broken. You need to start over and go back to focus on common sense reforms that will work to lower costs and increase access. And so what we do is some very common sense reforms, like we allow people to buy insurance across state lines. You can buy any product you want virtually across state lines. You go online, whether it's car insurance, you got this little gecko lizard that sells you car insurance. You save $500, you call the 800 number right now. You ought to be able to do that with health insurance. We allow people to actually have more a say, putting patients back in charge of healthcare decisions. We get government bureaucrats, IRS agents, out of healthcare decisions. So we focus on lowering the cost. We make sure that people with pre-existing conditions are protected. There's over 120 members of Congress now that are co-sponsors of our bill. It was written by medical doctors in Congress and other people that have real good professional experience at fixing these problems. What we're going to keep focusing on is fixing the problems that Aaron and Allison and others across Southeast Louisiana and all across the country are experiencing. So please share with us your story. These are powerful stories, and I want to thank both of you for sharing them with everybody else. We're going to continue to fight to get these problems fixed and then go in lower costs, but put patients back in charge of their healthcare decisions. So again, I want to thank everybody for participating in this Google Hangout. Continue to go to scalise.house.gov to share your stories with us. And thanks again to Aaron and Allison for your stories that you've shared. And thank everybody who's participated. And we appreciate, again, it's an honor to represent you in Congress. And I'll continue to fight to get these problems fixed.